We've got Shannon with us once again, our last video together for this section. And Shannon, I'm curious if you would tell us a story of a time that you used surveys as a method where you felt like the effort was really worthwhile, like it was a good fit. It's an example, maybe to others of when they could use surveys.
Yeah, so in my role with in Health and Wellbeing Institute, I lend a lot of evaluation support to the FoodWise program, which is our nutrition education program. And I can actually talk about something a big project we just finished up this past year, where we were evaluating our efforts in farmers market settings. And so we have a lot of data we've collected over the years in farmers market settings, a lot of pre-post survey data, but we wanted to dig in and learn more about the experience of farmers market managers. And in our discussions and planning for this project, we actually went back and forth a lot about, is a survey the best tool for this? Would it be better to do something like interviews with farmer market managers to collect more in-depth information? And we ended up deciding to go with a survey for a couple of reasons. So we wanted to collect some kind of standardized, consistent information across lots of different farmers markets about how their programs worked. So we wanted to know the types of payments that farmers markets accepted. This was specifically a project looking at EBT programs in farmers markets. So these are these electronic benefits transfer programs to let participants use their SNAP benefits to purchase at farmers markets. So we wanted to know EBT sales in dollars over the last several years. We wanted to know barriers to implementing and maintaining these types of programs, incentive programs they operated, et cetera. So we had a bunch of standardized information we wanted to collect across a whole bunch of farmers markets. So, a survey would be good for help collecting that information in a standardized, consistent manner. Another reason we decided to go with a survey is that farmers market managers are super busy. And it was going to be really hard to find a time to carve out for an interview with them. But if we set it up as a survey and we gave them a list of questions ahead of time, if this is the information that we want to collect, then they could prepare ahead of time and make sure they had the information that we needed, and then sit down at a time that worked for them and start going through the survey. And it was an online survey, and then maybe even stop in the middle and then come back another day to finish it. So it let them work around their busy schedule and collect all the information ahead of time that they needed. And then, like I said, it was an online survey. We used Qualtrics to design it. And this was super helpful because with Qualtrics, you can build something in that's called skip logic, where if a respondent answers a question one way, then that triggers this other set of questions that follows. But if they answer it a different way, either it skips the next part of the survey or it triggers a different set of questions. And this was really helpful because then the questions were really tailored to the circumstances of that individual farmer's market. And, it provided a really streamlined set of questions to that market manager that were all relevant to them as they were filling out the survey. We did still have a number of open-ended questions that were part of that survey, and honestly, it was probably more than was ideal. But because of the time constraints of the farmers market managers and the fact that they might have to be consulting with other people to get some of this information ahead of time, we still felt that in the end, it was the best approach to take.
Thank you for describing sort of the method itself so thoroughly. Do you have anything to share around kind of moving into the next stages of evaluation from that case study? Just the next part of the course will be on analysis and use of evaluation data. Just briefly, can you just tell us how that story ends or where it's at now, after you used it as a data collection method, if it's far enough along to share?
Yeah, and I can actually tell you what happened and what we ideally would have wanted to happen too. So ultimately, because of our own internal time constraints, we ended up analyzing this data internally among our FoodWise team and pulling together the results. What we really would have liked to have happened if we had had more time and farmers market managers weren't so busy and crunched for time on their own, is we would have preferred to analyze this data in partnership with at least a subgroup of those farmers market managers to really get their reflections on the data that came out of the survey, and kind of what this data would mean moving forward. And ideally, that would still be our next step, is we analyze the data ourselves, and we had to put together a report for a grant. So, we have that in product, but we would really love to take this data back now to those managers that participated, or maybe even ones that didn't have time to participate, and say like, hey, these are kind of the things we saw coming out of this data that you helped us all pull together. Does this jive with your experiences? Here's some lessons that we see coming from this. Do those lessons also align with your experiences? And do you think these are good, supports or capacity building to put in place to help improve the experience of market managers trying to implement these programs moving forward?
I love that you shared that, because earlier in this course, we have a module called Engaging Stakeholders, and what you just shared speaks to the different options. So just like with doing programming and doing evaluation, the time constraints, that you're mentioning, like, lead you to engage stakeholders in maybe a different way, but you're still planning to do it. Like, so you analyze the data on your own, but you're seeing that once you have the report ready, it's a chance to have a discussion. And maybe you're not even calling it a final report until you hear what they have to say around, until they're ground truthing the findings for you and weighing in on some of the recommendations or next steps. So I love that, because we know that depending on the evaluation, it's not going to look the same. And I just want folks taking this course to know that there are so many options, and that, it's your job to just pick what can work for you, given the context of your project. Yeah.
And I mean, and I think it is truly the case that, we can always come up with our ideal scenarios for what we would like an evaluation to look like in an ideal world. But we also operate in a world where there are a lot of constraints on what we can do and timelines. And so sometimes we have to, pick options that maybe aren't our ideal, or we have to change course in the middle and decide, okay, well, we'll do this for now and then plan to do something else later to supplement what we're doing currently or build upon it.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Shannon, for sharing with us about all of your survey experiences.
Yeah, happy to. Thanks for asking.
All right. Bye, everyone.